interested in the markets, he was interested in this. And that's the way, you see. So you want the people to want to follow the Sharia. And that is a very different knowledge. And this is what Tasawwuf has preserved, is to make the people want it. You are not looking into what they do, you look at the condition of the heart that makes them do that. And you change the condition of the heart. And how do you change the condition of the heart? You do it by yourself, having arrived a little bit farther, and just to say, look, I mean, I was there before. It is not worth it. You don't deal with the problems. You don't deal with this and just say, well, you are wrong in this, so you have to put it right. That doesn't help anything. That only makes it worse. So what you tell them is that you have love for dunya, or you have fear of dunya, whatever it is, it's sick that comes to you. And just say, forget it. Just don't deal with it. Love Allah so much that you have no love for anything else. Fear Allah so much that you don't have fear for anything else. So there is no psychology here, because according to us, there's no psyche. It's a fantasy. So if you deal with the psyche, you only make it worse. So you ignore the psyche completely, and you love Allah and you surrender to Him, and that's how you clear the self and the nafs. And that's the way of Tasawwuf. This is what the Shuyukh have been teaching all this time. This is the essence of the matter. So if this is the theme of Tasawwuf, how remembering Allah is going to help us to do that? Remembering death is going to help us to do that. What is the remembrance of that, about death? And what is the expression, the meaning of the expression die before you die? Because what the Shaykh, the Shuyukh are saying, what is your sickness? Sickness is getting attached to dunya. Dunya in itself is nothing but getting attached to dunya. You don't belong to this dunya. And death is what teaches you that clearly. You don't belong here. But only if you understand that death is within you. It's not an event at the end of this. It's part of you. From the moment you are born, you are already liable to death. It's attached to you already from the very beginning. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, you will not know when the time comes or where you die. And also He says that when the time comes, you cannot delay it 1 hour or make it faster. You cannot bring it forward or backwards. It's something very beautiful, because people will say, well, yeah, you cannot delay it, but I can fasten it if I kill myself. If you kill yourself, it was written for you. That's exactly your time. And that's why, we measure the world with our eyes, not with His eyes. And that's our mistake. We don't see His justice, because we cannot understand with our eyes. We only see it with our eyes, not with His eyes. In His eyes there is justice. That's why we look at death and we say it's something very sad, because we see it with our eyes. But it's a bliss for the mu'minun. It's a moment of bliss. This poor person has died, and it's bliss. It was brought to him. It's a great moment. With His measurement, not with ours. With His justice, with His will. With His attributes, not ours. And how do you get this understanding of His attributes? Well, it's precisely by abandoning yours and understanding your condition. And part of understanding your condition is understanding that you do not belong here. And death is the absolute reminder of that. I mean, even Heidegger speaks about it. He has a wonderful expression also when he speaks about being towards death. he said, this is because man is, I'm going to say it wrong in German again, forgive me those who speak German, but this is something like unheimlich, unheimlich, which means you are not in this house, you don't belong to this house, it's not your house, this is not yours. Unheimlich is not houseness. You don't belong here. And then he says, and this produces angst, anxiety, and all that thing of Heidegger, which is interesting. But from our understanding, we understand that Heimlich is very clear to us. Now he's speaking from the language of kufur, which is interesting. He's saying, look how kafir is kufur, that they refuse to understand something which is very obvious. But how much of our culture and our language is already embedded in it? And how difficult it is to have this conversation. Try. Just try. They would try to change the conversation as fast as it makes them uncomfortable. Only the Sufis, you can have a conversation about it, laughing. How is it possible to laugh about death? It's an integral part of our being. And his dhikr will help us to reach knighthood. So, let's go back to the subject. What is the meaning of dying before dying? What is it that it is intended in this affair of tasawwuf? What is that we are trying to achieve? I want to pray, but I don't know how to do it so that I break down. I don't know how to do it. I try, but it's difficult. What is it that is going to... What advice do you give to a person like this? Because there's no rational explanation. For God's sake, surrender. Surrender. But here death comes and helps. Because what is about death that is so special? It's the possibility of the impossibility. It's the fact that when it comes, that's it. It's a fact, it's the meaning that you do not belong here. And isn't it true that when somebody knows that the days are coming, the meaning of life changes? Isn't it true that if you were to know that death is tomorrow, you will abandon 80% of your affairs because you will consider them worthless? Isn't it true that suddenly the things that you have left behind, suddenly they come forward, and the things that you have forward in front of you, then you will push backwards? And isn't that this is at that moment, at that very moment, the things come therefore more clear to you? That the importance of things suddenly are highlighted. Isn't it true that when death is close to your heart, dunya has no meaning? The first thing you will do is stop accumulating. What is the point of accumulating? You can't take it with you. It's not going to help you. Because everything you do for others will count. So that's the moment where you will start thinking, I have to serve. So wouldn't it be more logical then that this meaning doesn't come to you in the stream of circumstances, but is embedded in you? Isn't it true that when death comes, nothing comes? Nothing of this world counts. Not even the dear ones. For whom you will have an attachment. You will look after them and you will think of what happens certainly. But you know that where you're going, they're not going to help you. They cannot help you. Wouldn't that be the moment to pray? If it was your last prayer? Would you pray the same way? Not when you are in a hurry? Because you have to go and catch a bus to go somewhere? Wouldn't be the meaning of the prayer different? If you know, this is it. You have 2 minutes. Would you be lost in your mind about what are you going to do in the evening? Or what you did last week? Within that prayer, carry a meaning of an enormous significance. Wouldn't you put your heart into it, knowing the end is coming? Haven't you seen sometimes? I remember my first Ramadan in Morocco, where I bought myself a shlaga. And I went, and there was a tiny little mosque beside our hotel in the center of Fez, in the Medina. And in this mosque, every subah, there will be this man. He was so old, really, really old. And it took me a long time to come from the entrance of the mosque to the prayer, the place where he would pray, the nafila prayers, and then to subah. And so God knows how long it took him from his house to there. But I tell you, it was so moving watching him pray, because I mean, you could feel this man knows maybe this is the last one. He was so fragile, and it was a beauty to watch him pray. It was extraordinary. And I could see in his prayer that this man is not wasting his time. This man is totally there. He's on it. There's nothing, nowhere else. He is totally there. Totally there and totally gone. And I looked at him with envy. I want that. I want that for myself. And his image hasn't left me ever. I'm sure it's there right now. It's 25 years ago. But before he left, he certainly passed something on to me. You see, death is an eraser of nonsense. And it brings forward a meaning. If you want to fight fi sabilillah, if what you want is to devote yourself to the deen of Islam, if you want the prayer to have meaning and absolutely surrender to Him, if you want to bring His deen and the commands of Allah, that they are very clear, and you want to bring them forward, and you find yourself in difficulties, you say, but no, I cannot because of this or this or that. Die before you die. Die before you die. Leave everything else, for nothing else matters but Him. Follow His commands, because they are clear and they are easy for us, even if we don't understand. Do it and bring it forward. And if you find the difficulties that I don't have because of this and I cannot because of that and that and that and that, die before you die and leave it all out and bring forward only that matters. And if you want to pray and you don't cry with it, and it doesn't break you down, and if your desire is not there, then die before you die. Die before you die. So that you understand that this is what matters. That this is really the affair. And fill your heart with fear of Him and love of Him. So much so that when you come out of it, nothing matters to you. Nothing but Him. And these times, we need people like this, with this character. Because the task is big and it has been neglected. And I don't mean the task of tasawwuf. I mean the task of the Sharia. The Sharia has been abandoned. Instead, a pseudo Sharia has been brought into place that has accommodated the modern way of affairs, the political systems, the democracies, and the economic riba of capitalism. Then you have Islamic human rights, and Islamic banks, and Islamic insurance, and all that. Because they've made a world that they feel comfortable with. So they haven't changed the world, they have changed the Sharia. They say, well, this Sharia I can understand, the other one I cannot. And to rescue it, we need people who go further. And they say, we don't accept that. The Sharia doesn't need reform. Doesn't need reform. We need reform. But we don't judge other people. We judge ourselves. We put ourselves on the spot. And that's the Sufi. And if you want this knowledge, then love Allah. And follow His commands if you don't understand, especially the things you don't understand. Because nobody is asking you to understand. What is they're asking you is to submit. Submit to Him. Islam means submission to Him, not understanding of Him. That's another story. Submission to Him, and then you have understanding of Him. You want Marifatullah? Submit to Him.